Welcome back to the Keep On Growing podcast. This is Mike Van Doozy, and today we're going to be talking about growing in Mylar bags and with hydroponics. Now, I'm going to try to get to everything really quick, not take too much of your time, but if I miss anything, I'll just have another podcast. We're going to talk about why I did it and then pros and cons if it worked or not. So, first off, the reason why I did it was because I'm trying to help everyone out. I want everyone to grow, so this goes as far as eliminating excuses like we always talk about, right? So we're always trying to find different ways to help people. Now, I used to remodel and actually worked with a home builder, and sometimes I forget that not everyone has power tools. And a hole saw, which I just had a bunch of them, they're available on Amazon and that, but some people didn't want to just buy a hole saw for just the hydroponics, build in a couple of containers and then never use it again. That's just like our end caps. We started making the end caps because I said just get a heat gun and bend the ends, and people were like, you know, what am I going to use the heat gun for, you know, after that? So they didn't want to buy one just for that purpose. So I was just trying to think of what you could do without any power tools, and if you couldn't find any friends or family in that had any that would be willing to help you out. And the Mylar bag, one of you guys out there actually mentioned it. Some preppers use it for storing products and that, and it actually cuts out all of the light. It helps keep the stuff cool, and it came with like desiccant that you put in to keep moisture out, but it's used for preserving food and everything. So I did like the Mylar bags as far as keeping the light out, and like not one bit of algae grew, and I've got like 20 containers going at one time. Some of the tomatoes didn't make it through the hailstorm. We'll talk about that in another video. So I had to remove the tomatoes. They got tore up, but I left the nutrients in those Mylar bags and left them zipped up. And they're still in there. There's no algae growing, and when I need some nutrients, I go over and just unzip it, dip my jug down in there and get some more nutrients. So I'm just going to leave those containers just sitting around with the nutrients in it and see how it does, because when I had it just sitting in the bucket, if any light was hitting the bucket, we'd get algae growing in it. So the Mylar bags might be really good if you guys just want to get some just to mix your nutrients in and to zip it up and to keep it's closed up. You don't have to worry about any air getting in there and stuff growing. You don't have to worry about the light. So that was one good aspect of it. Now, as far as growing the plants, we had the smaller gallon size ones up the wall with the kale, and that did awesome. It grew to the baby size and almost to the mature size without me actually doing anything. I think that I added nutrients when they got really big. I added some nutrients like once, and that's all I did, and then it was just going to get to be too much of a bother for me. I know it's not a lot of work, but when I have my ladder system, I have the downspouts on it, so I have 6 steps, and I usually only plan on about 5 of them because the cat gets to the bottom level and I just don't want to eat it after the cat's tail's been all over it. So I usually plan on 5 of them. So when I have to refill stuff, I go over and there's 5 that I just kind of pull one of the pool noodles out and just refill and put it back, and it takes me about 20 seconds. Now with the bags, I had each one stapled. I think each level had 4, and then I went up 5 levels, so I had 20 of them on that wall. So I had to go over and unzip 20 of them, which was a little bit more difficult than just pulling a pool noodle out, and stick a funnel down in there because I didn't want to splash nutrients all over the air roots. So I stuck a funnel in so that it would funnel the nutrients down on one side, and I would have to refill each one of them, and I had 20 of them to do there. So instead of coming up and taking a few minutes, it took me like 20-30 minutes just to refill nutrients on this wall. And after that, I was like, you know, once these plants get big, am I going to be wanting to do this every 3 or 4 days? The answer was no, so we harvested the kale. Let's see, we grew some tomatoes in them. Now that was awesome. If you grow maybe a small indeterminate cherry tomato, 5 gallons, you probably get it to grow big enough and to start flowering, maybe even start fruiting before you have to do anything to it. Now, one thing I told you guys was to maintain your levels. Now this was a little more difficult because I had it in the bucket and I put water around the outside to keep it cool too, to help insulate it. And what would happen was when it was raining, that would fill up with more water, and as the plant used nutrients, it would squeeze the bag and the nutrient level would actually go up. So it would look like it had more nutrients, and then when the sun would come out and it would evaporate that outside layer of water, then the bag would expand and the level would go down. So the level was going up and down without me even adding nutrients to it. So it was kind of hard to gauge. Like, I like to keep it at one certain level. And it was kind of hard to do that with the bag being able to move in and out. So if that's kind of hard to envision, I'm going to make a video about that. And I'll make a video about, you know, all the stuff that we're talking about. But I just want to let some of you know, because some of you were asking about it. So that's one thing you got to watch, is that it's kind of hard to gauge. So with your rain, if it's outside and the bag moving, your level's changing a whole lot. My only other problem with it, and this may be the reason that I stopped doing it, I took most of my tomatoes out. I'm going to do something else with the buckets, but they're not as durable as the bucket. So it's easy to use. Like I said, some people didn't want to buy a hole saw for it, so this was easy because all you needed was a little razor blade and you just cut a little slot on the top, put your pool noodle in, and you have a container. So it made it really easy with just a razor blade and took about 20 seconds. But with it not being as durable, I've got a neighborhood cat that has an obsession with plastic. I have no idea what it is. He'll sit on my front porch and wait for the Amazon guy to come by. When they drop their stuff off, he just starts chewing my plastic envelopes up. But I'll go grab it. It'll be all wet from cat slobber and have holes all in the bag. And if he gets into my workshop, he chews. I have to keep him away from the nutrients. I have to keep those inside of hard containers that he can't get to. If I just leave it in the bag, he'll chew on that. He's a menace. But one of my bags was like leaking, and I went up and looked, and then I looked at a bunch of them, and he was going to the tops that he could reach that were sticking out of the bucket and was chewing on all of them. And I caught him out there one day, and you know, I tried to chase him off, but you know, he's a nice cat. We like having him around. So the ones that you see with the tomato plants that are up against the wooden rail, those, he hasn't touched them yet. But now that I've taken the other ones out, it's only a matter of time. So this might be tough for me, is that the tomatoes will grow big. I'm already starting to get tomatoes in. We're just waiting for them to get ripe. And it'll be, I know just that moment right before it happens, he's going to come in and just take out the plant. So we'll go out and the bags will be empty and the plants will be dry. That's the only other problem, is that it's not as durable as a plastic bucket. If you guys have got a menacing cat around, or squirrels, possums, raccoons, just anything that might chew on a bag, they might come over and just pop a hole in it. Also, just you walking around, like you'll see those big 5-gallon ones, I've got them up out of the way and I've got a walkway in front of it. But if it was just in my garden, I was walking around, you could probably maybe even turn around and kick it or something. Or if you're carrying a hoe or a shovel, you might just swing the hoe the wrong way while you're walking by, and you might just pop one. So probably not the most ideal situation, but it was fun doing the experiment, and it does work. And the one going up the wall, that worked. That grew kale, and I could have harvested all of that, planted some more kale in, and just went back at it again. The bags were clean on the inside. There was no algae at all. It's just rinsing them out. Just, you guys know that after a little while there's going to be like salt buildup and stuff on it. So there's a little bit of residue, but you totally can just start over and use them over and over again. I don't know how many times, because I'm not going to keep on doing it. I wanted to take these down and put my downspouts back up on my ladder system. If I had more room to do a lot more of these experiments and just spread out, and I would, but it's getting to be a little bit of work, and we're going to talk about that in another video, because I'm all about cheap and easy, and these extra experiments are just keeping me on my toes. So we'll talk about that on our next one. I think that'll be a good subject. So you guys, the Mylar bags, fun experiment. I think a lot of you out there, it could benefit if you don't want to get tools, if you can't, you know, do all of that work. If you just want to order something that, I think it was 12 bucks for the 1-gallon bags, or $20. It depends on what size you get. You can get like 5, 10, 25 of them, different size packages, but pretty cheap. They come out to about $1 or $2 a piece, and you just take a little razor blade, fill it up with nutrients, cut a little slot, and you're in business. I think it can work for some people, and if you do it indoors, hey, there's, I don't know if you've got an indoor cat, but you won't have all the other critters running around in that to worry about too. So just another option for us to play with. I'd like you, if any of you out there are experimenting with it too, let us know what's going on, and let me know what other experiments you want to see, because we're going to be doing a lot of different stuff coming up. So that's on our next episode. We'll talk about that. Alrighty, love you guys. Live to inspire, keep on growing, be the change. We'll catch you next time.